Hi everybody, this is our first proper, guest, and I had Jack, and not that Jack is not a proper guest for our last episode, but I'm here with Jessica today, and we have just recorded an episode with Maurece Hutchinson, who is the Managing Director of JMK Solicitors, which is Northern Ireland's top personal injury firm. Now, you'd wonder maybe how that fits in with our overall scheme of things here in Activist Lawyer, but it really, really does. And I think listeners will find, firstly, Maurece will touch on something that's very important to her and to her firm they've been grappling with for a long time, which is calling on the Department of Justice for legislation to protect injured children. So she'll talk about minor settlements, and I think that's really eye-opening and fascinating. And then she'll also talk about something which will affect all of our guests and listeners, particularly within the legal profession, around a 4-day working week and how she balances that, and how her staff have been, I was nearly going to say coming to terms with it, but it's something that's very positive, have been enjoying the benefits of working in a very, very busy law firm, but also achieving more balance in their lives. And I think that's really important for all of us to hear. So I hope you enjoy this episode. And again, thanks to Jessica for being with me today and helping out.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. Hello everybody, and welcome to this episode of Activist Lawyer. I hope you're all doing really well. I'm joined today in the studio by our lovely Jessica and Maurece Hutchinson, who's the Managing Director of JMK Solicitors. Hi Maurece.
Hello, how are you?
Great. Thanks for joining us today. So yes, we've a little bit of a different one today. It's not a topic with which I'm completely familiar with, so it's really been great getting to know more about this issue. And just a little introduction of what we're going to be talking about today. So for several years, JMK Solicitors, who are Northern Ireland's leading personal injury firm, have been calling for action by the Department of Justice to ensure that children's rights are fully protected when making personal injury claims. Justice Minister Naomi Long has stated that she is committed to focusing on the issue of protecting compensation for children arising out of civil claims such as personal injuries, and that she intends to consult on how it might be possible to ensure that all settlements can be protected in a way that's proportionate. So we're going to get into a little bit more of the bones of this today with Maurece. But before we do that, Maurece, just like all of our guests in Activist Lawyer, could you let our listeners know a little bit about you, yourself, your career, whatever you want to talk about today?
Hi Sarah, thank you so much for the invite today. I'm really, really happy to be here. I suppose to tell you a little bit about me, I qualified as a solicitor 25 years ago now in September, which is nearly unbelievable to me now at this stage. And at the start, I think I really wanted to practice criminal law, and I was old enough to be practicing mainly up around Crumlin Road and going into Crumlin Road jail when it wasn't a tourist attraction, very far from it. And I was very lucky to be along with some incredible QCs. And I suppose maybe at that time, I had once sort of harboured the desire to be a barrister, and when I'd seen those guys in action, it kind of reassured me that being a solicitor was probably better, because I don't think I could have matched their advocacy skills. So I did criminal work for a few years, but it was tough. It was tough work. You're on call, you're going to police stations in the middle of the night. It was scary as well, the stuff that you were dealing with, and I really felt that I wasn't making a difference at all in what I was doing, and it was kind of soul destroying, really. I got an opportunity in the practice that I was working in to do personal injury work, and this is where I found my niche, I suppose, and I absolutely loved it. I loved helping people. I was fascinated by the injuries. I was fascinated by the whole process of it. And it was the one area of law I felt that you were making a difference. You were helping people when they needed it. You were actually giving clients money when a lot of lawyers are accused of taking money off clients. So it was fantastic, and I had such a worthwhile time. So I worked in that practice for about 10 years. I became a partner there, and I got married, and I moved out of Belfast. And to be honest, I didn't want to do the commute anymore. So I started looking around, and I came across Jonathan McKeown Solicitors in Newry, and at that stage there was 4 people in the practice, including myself. And
can't imagine that.
It was a huge psychological shift going down there. So I went down to Jonathan's office and I never looked back. I was really given an amazing amount of support and encouragement, and really the opportunity to be part of the growth from a very small practice, as I said, of 4, and we're almost 80
huge
in our team now, and we have offices in Belfast and Newry, and we are hoping to open an office up in Derry in the near future. So we're really, really excited for that. And we've been the #1 personal injury practice in Northern Ireland for the last 7 years. Wow. So it's been amazing. And, I'm very, very happy to be there. And I'm very lucky to have fantastic colleagues all around me. So to include Olivia Meehan, who's our legal service director, and just a huge team of great people. So we've been through a lot in the last year with the pandemic, but I think we've come out of it stronger than ever.
Yeah, my goodness, that's just such growth with that business. But it's so interesting, I think, for our listeners as well, because we do have a lot of younger listeners. They love to hear, when they're currently trying to decide which road to go down and which route. We get a lot of people coming back with great feedback about hearing about other people's stories, solicitor stories, and how they got to where they are. So that's so interesting that you took, such a different turn. But I was fair play to criminal lawyers and people. They're amazing. It's just such tough work as well. Not that I specialised then in immigration after doing criminal for a while, but it's so interesting to see where you got to from practicing in that area. But anyway, so we'll go on to what we're talking about too. And you've been extremely busy covering ground with a few matters. I think 3 really. It's the issue we're going to talk today about minor settlements, which is really interesting. Also, we're going to look at just your work practices too, and how JMK have been kind of approaching things a little bit differently and taking a lead on a 4-day work week. And then just the firm itself has really been growing massively, as you just said, and faced challenges like everything through COVID. But we'll touch on all of that. But I think before we get to that, in the intro there, I mentioned about minor settlements, and you've been, how many years have you been working on this now? And do you want to give the listeners a bit of background into this area, because I'm sure many aren't familiar with it?
Well, I think that's kind of the point, is that if your child has been involved in an accident, it's normally road traffic accidents, you may be approached by the insurance company who's at fault, who offer to make a settlement to you and your children in the car at the time, without you getting access to a lawyer, and undoubtedly not getting access to court approval. And really the issue around this is that if children's compensation is paid to their parents, there is no guarantee that money is going to be available to the child when they turn 18. And the parents, through no fault of their own, I mean, they're not lawyers, they're not going to know what the obligations are. They may feel that they're doing the right thing by their child in doing this. There's lots of reasons why this is, a very worrying thing. Firstly, it's unlikely, in fact, most unlikely, that an insurance company would bother to get any medical evidence for that child. So you've actually no idea the extent of a child's injuries.
Gosh, yeah.
And the other big concern is that we would liaise a lot with medical experts, to include psychologists and psychiatrists. And what they have told us is that children often are very unlikely, particularly in primary age, to display psychiatric or psychological damage until later in life. So it may manifest itself behaviourally. Children may start bedwetting or other things that you may not actually connect to being involved in a road traffic accident, and those injuries just will not be compensated, and the parents may not even be aware that child needs additional support. So it's a complete lack of access to justice. So really it's about the lack of, would you say, regulations to compel, courts to approve settlements and of course compensation for children. So that's what's... Well, essentially there's nothing stopping insurance companies from doing this practice. And in fact, conversely, the Association of British Insurers, who are a trade body for the insurance industry, have developed a guide to advise insurers to do this. It's actually a strategy of insurers when you are dealing with people who are victims of your driver. Here's what you need to do. Now, they have updated their guidance after I have been obviously tormenting them really for the last 5+ years, to say that we strongly advise people to get legal representation, but there's no obligation. It's not regulated. It's not banned. There's nothing legally requiring them to do this. So we came across this issue because we had got freedom of information requests, and it really was quite shocking to us to find that approximately a third of all cases registered with children were not getting approved by the court.
And they weren't having legal, they weren't...
Well, the inference is that they wouldn't have had legal representation.
Right,
I mean,
okay.
I'm not here to, bash insurance companies. I mean, there may well be a possibility that lawyers were not getting court approval, in which case, the Law Society have also been issuing guidance to members to say, that's a requirement to get the cases approved. It is a really serious issue, and I think that, when you do work like personal injury work, you are sort of the butt of a lot of jokes and, ambulance chasers, compensation culture, all of this sort of things. And that really is a lot of propaganda that has been put out by the insurance industry, because the insurance industry isn't remotely interested in victims or in paying out in claims. They're just interested in generating profit for their shareholders. And they have, put out a lot of false information, in my opinion, in relation to the amount of claims. In fact, over the last 20 years, claims have fallen by 50% in Northern Ireland. Right. So there's a lot less claims than there was 20 years ago, but yet we're being told there's a prolific claim culture.
So the figures speak for themselves, really, and you were shocked to find, what you'd discovered yourselves all along was evident in the freedom of information request that you made. And even on the back of that, I think I was reading a little bit about it in terms of the Civil Justice Review from Lord Justice Gillen, who expressed grave concern at this issue.
Well, I was very lucky that, I was able to meet with Lord Justice Gillen and became a contributor to the Civil Justice Review, and he was extremely concerned about that, and as he has stated in his report, and it was in fact his recommendation that led to the call for legislative reform to ensure the practice was halted. Obviously that was back in 2017, and we're 4 years down the line. Assembly had stalled then at that stage, so there was no impetus. I mean, I have been writing to successive justice ministers saying there's a call for a ban on this, you need to do something about it. And there's been many meetings between myself, Department of Justice, and with the Association of British Insurers. I've also sit on the Shadow this is a mouthful, Shadow Civil Justice Advisory Group. Okay. So we've also been, we've been formed essentially to help bring in the recommendations from the Civil Justice Review, and successive meetings we're calling for it, and finally this year, thankfully, the Department of Justice accepted that it needed to go out to public consultation, and that has been launched in July, just past there. Okay,
so that's the consult. So there's a questionnaire available, but just going back, so the Department of Justice have said they're committed. Have you found that? Is there now a level of commitment for this going forward, because it is a serious issue? Or
I do feel that, I'm very, very grateful to the Justice Minister for, listening to what I had to say and, bringing out the consultation. I am slightly disappointed in the content of the consultation itself, because some of the points that are made, I feel, are tending towards not banning it. One of the points that I have tried to make to the Department of Justice is that I feel that this is a human rights issue as well, because the state is obliged to legislate and take measures to implement the rights of children under Article 4 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. And this is an obligation which does affect the economic rights of children. So this argument about proportionality keeps getting made, which I think is is misleading, because it's assuming that if it's a small amount of money or it's not enough cases, that it shouldn't happen. But children are the most vulnerable in society, and they are relying on adults and the law to protect those rights. And it doesn't matter how much money or how many it is. Children shouldn't be exploited, and they are being exploited for the benefit of insurance company shareholders, and that just cannot be right. And I just feel that it's just a basic principle of a decent, civilised society, that they protect the innocent.
This podcast is sponsored by Granite Legal Services, a niche business and immigration law practice located in the heart of Newry City. Granite Legal Services provides legal advice to both individuals and companies alike across a wide range of industries, from employment, commercial or corporate law matters to immigration law. Granite Legal Services focuses on providing legally sound, practical advice to its clients. To get in touch, visit www.granitelegalservices.co.uk or contact 028 3026 2200.
So really in this case, I mean, so we'll talk about a little bit more about the consequences of this not happening, just to give somebody, you know, an idea of the realities of it. And as you said, it doesn't matter about the amount of compensation, but really without that court approval and anything mandatory there, you're left with a situation where I suppose some insurers maybe do opt to provide advice or some level of protection, but without something, even judges, I'm sure, find it, you know, the judiciary itself can't really manage this without something in place and something there. But just to give listeners maybe an idea of maybe some of the cases, I know you can't talk about specifics, that you've come across and maybe how this has impacted families or children, you know.
Well, this is the very crux of the problem, because the child may not even know if they were young enough that they were involved in an accident. So it's very difficult to secure victims to come forward, because those victims may well have had no idea that this has happened to them. And parents are unlikely to want to say, oh, I spent your compensation money on a sofa or whatever has happened. And I'm not saying that most parents, you know, are not absolutely focused on their children, but certainly speaking to the judiciary about this issue, one of the things that happens whenever cases are approved by the court is that the parents can make applications for payment out. So they can say if there's a welfare or educational need for the child, the parent is allowed to apply to the court for a payment of money to use towards that end. And the judiciary have said to me they have received applications for barbecues, family holidays, you know, things that are not necessarily in the child's interest. And, you know, parents might just think there's a pot of money there, this would be good for the family, let's just dip into that. When that money could be used to pay towards university fees, you know, health things.
When the child turns 18, is that, and they can access it
exactly.
then? Yeah. God, exactly. That's a real, so there must be a huge gap then with, you know, our children who've fallen through, who haven't had any, you know, I mean, you spoke about a third there, but the figures must be quite seismic, even if parents aren't aware of this.
Absolutely, you know, and you're obviously relying on the register being completely, is being completed correctly. So every case where someone is involved in an accident, the insurance or the compensator is obliged to complete the register within 14 days of being notified of a claim. So, you know, if that isn't being completed correctly, you know, that is also an issue, you know, in terms of we don't actually know how big this problem is, and it could actually be worse. We just don't know. And you're relying on the person who is, if you like, the offender to tell you what's happening. So it's really not an ideal situation. And I think that the risk really for the insurer, which is that child can still come back
absolutely
up to their 21 and say, I want to make my claim now. And the insurer wouldn't have a leg to stand on because they shouldn't have given the money to the parent.
Right. Oh, that's so.
And then you can rest assured, us as purchasers of insurance will pick up the cost of that.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It'll be passed on to us as a consumer.
So this has been going on. So fair play to, I mean, your firm have obviously been pushing this forward, and yourself, Maurece, a spokesperson for that as well. So what's next, or how can this be resolved? And, you know, are we any closer to?
But my thing is that, you know, please fill in this response, please, as many people as I can say. It's on the Department of Justice website.
Okay.
So go on to it. It is about 10 questions. You know, the first question is really the only one that you need to answer, you know, which is, should the court approve all minor settlements? I mean, if you say yes to that and submit the response, that would be enough for me.
Yeah.
There is also a children's version of the consultation, which is, you know, is pitched at that level, which, you know, I would encourage all schools to get their students to complete it. You never know, victims could come out at this stage and say, actually, this happened to me. I've got a 16-year-old daughter, and I said to her, would you fill this in? What do you think of this? And she was shocked to think that this could even happen.
Yeah.
And she's been listening to me talking about it for about 5 years, and she still sort of didn't really grasp it until she read the document. So it's really accessible from that perspective. So, what we've found before in other consultation responses is that the people who are defending these cases are extremely well resourced. They're huge global insurance companies who have got, infinite resources really compared to the victims to galvanise support, to file many, many, many responses. And I don't want the innocence voice to be drowned out because somebody's got deeper pockets and can spend more money drafting a response than the person who's actually the victim of this. So that's really my message, is you've got to do this, because otherwise this isn't going to be banned. Insurers are going to continue to get away with it. And you've got to wake up to the fact that you're being lied to in terms of compensation culture and all these other things. It's just not happening.
And to regulate this, we need legislation.
Absolutely.
Basically. How do you think that will look, or how long will that take, or what stages are involved for this?
Well, obviously, I'm sure we're in the mandate's closed essentially because we're going into re-election time, as it never seems to end in this country.
No.
But
that's another thing we have to be mindful of when we're tackling important issues like this in Northern Ireland.
Yeah. So there's the new elections, I think, are planned for the start of the year. So there'll be nothing will happen this year. I mean, I obviously was very disappointed about that because there was a miscellaneous bill going through, and we could have potentially have got in under that one, but the consultation didn't come out on time. So I will be continuing to, when this consultation response come back, I'm hoping the Minister will make the right decision and go for a ban. Yeah. And thereafter I will be
pushing forward for what this is going to look like. So it's really important then, just again, to listeners to get involved, and it doesn't take very long. Click on, it's the Department of Justice website, you'll find the link. Yeah. And before the 24th of September,
yes,
that's
it has to be done. The deadline is the 5 p.m. on the 24th of September. Genuinely, it will take you 20 minutes to do it. You can do it all online. It's easy to do. The school one, the one for children, it's really, really, really simple, and will take 10 minutes, I would say, to complete and get it done. And I think it's worth your time. Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about protecting vulnerable children here, and I mean, this is something that can happen to all of us. It's it's a global issue, but it's something I certainly wasn't aware of, and it's great to have attention drawn to it. So get involved, and if anybody has any questions about it or anything like that, I mean, we'll probably put a bit of text up as well about this on our website just to accompany this episode. Well, we're hoping on the JMK website to have a link with a lot of resources on it and a bit more information on it, because it, just to make it easier for people to be aware of it. So we're hoping to get that up by the start of September. Well, so we'll share that too. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sarah. Really appreciate the support. Not at all. And just so we'll move on just to another. So Maurece, you've been busy on another issue as well. I don't know whether it's a result of COVID or not, the change in your kind of working conditions within JMK, but I think it was in place before that, wasn't it? So this is the 4-day working week. Yeah. Tell listeners about this, because I'm sure a lot of, especially firms, not to put pressure on other law firms out there to do this, but Maurece is going to tell us a little bit about how this has been working in JMK Solicitors. Yeah, well, it's a lot lighter topic to go on to. It is. So just move on. So I have been talking an awful lot about this in the last couple of weeks, mainly because I was asked by Forsa, who is the massive trade union in the Republic of Ireland, to come on board and help them with their 40-week Ireland campaign. So that was launched earlier in the summer, and they're signing up their pilot companies now at the moment. So I've been asked to be a mentor for some other companies to make sure that they get the benefit of our experience. Brilliant. But really, to go back to why do we do this, I think one of the things that Jonathan and Olivia and I have talked about a lot is that we really want to be the best place to work, and we constantly strive to find better and more innovative ways to be the only place where people would want to go to. And in fact, one of the recent surveys, one of our staff said, "Why would you want to work anywhere else?" And for me, that's it. That's the ultimate. Yeah. So the background is 2017. We decided it's so depressing. The weather is rubbish. Why don't we go and work in the sun? Why don't we find a way that we can work abroad in the darkest winter month of February? So we have been paperless since 2011 because we developed our own case management system. We scan all our posts on. So we don't have paper files. We are completely not the traditional solicitor's practice in any way, shape or form. Now, putting in that case management system nearly put our lights out because it was such a cultural shift. We were all dictaphones, the whole shebang.
Yep.
So to go from that to no files and no typing pill was, you know, a massive psychological shift. So in the project, we called it our ultimate core values project, which was if the team could find savings either in photocopying costs or printing costs or efficiencies in terms of process to pay for half of the costs of the flights and half of the accommodation costs, we would go to Lanzarote for the month of February. And they did it. And we went.
I know you did. I didn't know what was behind it, but I remember seeing this and I was like, is that real? Or is it just a few people? Or who was it? Was it everybody?
Absolutely, everybody could go. And, you know, it was absolutely amazing. And there was lots of like, oh, I can't go, I've got kids, or I can't go because, you know, I work in the admin team, and everybody could go. So what we did for the people who had kids, to include myself, is that we went in half-term week. That's why we went in February. So the kids didn't have to go out of school. Everybody was allowed to work whatever hours basically they liked. Some people didn't go. Some people stayed at home. People at home loved being at home because it was quieter in the office and they got peace. And there was a buzz about us being away. So because the team did the project, we stayed in a 5-star hotel because they picked the hotel because they needed somewhere with good Wi-Fi. So the IT team.
I thought you were going to say good wine there for
well,
a second.
The wine was good too. At the weekend,
obviously. Good Wi-Fi, yes.
But it was amazing. It was an absolutely amazing hotel. My kids still rave about it now. You know, it was one of the best weeks ever. And it was so amazing to get to meet other people on the team that I wouldn't normally get to spend time with. I know it was a bit awkward, the whole swimming pool situation, but, you know, aside from that, you know, it wasn't really
I think I would find that a bit awkward as well.
Yeah, but you got over it. So it was good bonding experience. So when we came back, we then looked back and said, well, what did we learn from that? And what we learned was we had the best turnover in the business's history during that month, which was just unbelievable. So we thought, well, if we can do that, what could we do? And next, and there's been lots of things that I have seen about it. Jonathan was obviously, you know, he is the ideas man. You know, Olivia and I would be the implementers, I suppose, in the business. But I had seen a program. It was about a German pencil factory, and they did a job swap. So they had a guy from Germany come and live in the UK, and a family from the UK went to live in Germany. And basically, they were trying to establish why the UK has the highest amount of working hours, but the lowest amount of output.
Right. And
basically, it was just that we just muck about too much in work, and we're not focused. So what the outcome of that is that we're only productive 3 hours a day. We only actually do anything that's going to generate income 3 hours a day. And all you needed to do was find an extra hour of productivity a day, and you get a day off. So that's what we did. A lot of people believe that the 4-day week is 40 hours in 4 days, or you're taking a 20% pay cut. We are doing 30-hour weeks, and anybody who was on a 4-day week got a 20% pay rise. So everybody's getting 100% of their pay for 80% of the hours for 100% of the output. That's really the way it works. And you know, in terms of ourselves, a lot of other companies just say we're just going to do a 4-day week. They go in on a Friday and say Monday we're flipping to a 4-day. Because we're lawyers, because we're overthinkers and perfectionists, we spent 2 years, those 2 years between 2017 and 2019, researching it, working out how we can make it happen, because the only way it's going to work for a business is if you've set your baseline KPIs. So you need to know what you're you can't drop below your output, and you can't drop below your satisfaction levels, because we have a 99% recommendation rate from clients, and we can't let that slip. So those have been maintained. We went live in January 2020, just right before the pandemic.
Wow.
March, we sort of thought, are we crazy doing this? And do you know what? It was the best thing we could have done because people needed their time off more then than ever because people were so stressed. So we were very, very lucky, and it's just been brilliant.
So productivity was had to be maintained. But how do you think, just how does this tie into, I suppose, mental health, well-being? You've just touched on it there with COVID, but just in general, that must do something for people to know that they have that little bit of time, you know.
Yeah. I think it's just you know, we have some of our team have, you know, done videos and stuff. It's on our social and on our website about it. You know, there's people who've got interest in farming, so they've been able to spend more time in the farm. One of our apprentice solicitors is really talented singer-songwriter, so she's doing music. You know, there's just different things that you do, and I think that, you know, we lawyers are, you know, workaholics, you know, and we really do work ridiculous hours, and I would have been the worst offender of that. And you know, for me, it was so important that we showed that we meant it, and we took the day off and weren't sneaking back to do emails and things on our day off. So but yeah, we don't do the 3-day weekend. You know, everybody has a different day off, or some people work shorter hours during the week. It's flexible because it suits everybody different ways. But obviously, we have to be open 5 days because of court and because, you know, that's what the clients need. But you know, no one works 5 days.
Yeah, and it really fits into this culture now that we're moving away from, like the old school times where it was the later you work, the more productive you are, obviously. And I remember even the firm I worked with in Dublin, there'd be girls sending emails at like, you know, 1 o'clock in the morning. So it's the first thing that opens and you're like, God, she worked till 1 o'clock last night. But like that is not, it's not
proven.
healthy.
No, it's been proven to be unhealthy and unproductive.
Has to be. Absolutely.
And rest is such an important thing. I mean, there's so much talk now about burnout, particularly in our industry. You know, it is really very worrying. You know, there's got to be a life outside of work, and you bring so much more to work when you've got, you know, outside experience. You know, we do loads of health and fitness challenges. We do loads of things in work that are, you know, not to do with work, like charity work and lots of different things that are much more enriching to you as a person, and it means that you've got something to give to your clients, because if you have been slogging your guts out 14 hours, like where you're going to lose your empathy, you're going to lose your ability to rationalise, you know, it's just a slog.
It becomes a job. And I suppose the importance of this podcast in particular, we've had you know, guests on here who are doing amazing work, but one thing we always ask them is, what do you do to relax? Because they're so passionate, they're so driven for their clients, particularly where they're working in very difficult areas with asylum seekers and very vulnerable people, you know, victims of injustice, etc., and that can be very taxing, you know, mentally, emotionally. And we've had people in here speaking about how the emotional ties they have with their clients. But you're right, it's great to be able to also step back as well. And, you know, burnout is something that we'll all experience. I've experienced it myself, you know, and it's great to have that balance. So really, you're one of the, I'd say probably, you know, in terms of our industry, leading the way in that. But what has been the response? Because you have been speaking to other industries, not just law, am I right, about this? And are people really excited by it, or are people still a bit like, God, how's that going to work? Or, you know,
well, I think we were the first in Northern Ireland to do it. I just certainly haven't heard of any other company did it before we did. But yeah, I think people are very cynical about it. Employers know that they're going to have to do it because they're going to lose their talent if they don't. So we were meeting with Tuesday this week. It was CEOs of lots of different companies, quite a lot of tech companies, because they, you know, it's a very high, you know, demand industry. You know, it's very difficult to secure talent in that industry, and they know that they need to be agile in what they're offering. You know, particularly in this republic, when you've got the likes of Google and Facebook headquarters, and they're offering all sorts of things, and people don't want to work in the office anymore, and there's lots and lots of stuff that's having to happen to attract talent and keep talent. So yeah, I think that people are getting with the program, and there's just so much out there. There's so many books about it. You know, there's I just genuinely cannot see any negative. I just can't see a negative to it. I just think it is brilliant. I mean, for myself, you're talking about like, how do you unwind? I had to book stuff into my Wednesday, so I like go do Pilates, or I've started like going to a trainer. and doing the walking. I've got a dog. I've done loads of things to think I need to fill the time, because I'm not a sit in the house person doing nothing.
And you would start, maybe the temptation would be there to just get the old laptop. The old
addiction would kick in.
I'd be the same as you, so it would be something I'd have to book the time in for.
Yeah.
But like I just think it's so exciting, and I think a lot of the guests we've had on and people listening to this will be really keen to hear about that and how it is working in reality. And we've witnessed it. We know a lot of people who work in JMK, and we've just heard good reports about it.
Yeah.
So that's good. And just back, I know the topic here, the key topic was about the minor settlements and, protecting vulnerable children in personal injury claims. But just bringing that into this podcast, I suppose, in terms of representing vulnerable people, how important do you think it is to kind of, maintain that level of activism there? You've been doing it a lot. And for lawyers, how can listeners get involved, or would you recommend this type of work that you're doing?
Well, I just think, as I said, I am really proud to be a personal injury lawyer. I'm also, I've been a member of the Association of Personal Injury Lawyers for 20 years. I'm their joint regional coordinator. I'm a fellow in APAL. I really am loud and proud personal injury, and I've never, not been proud of it, because I feel like I am helping people when they have suffered injuries that are catastrophic. They may never work again. They may have suffered psychological harm. So things like that, I just feel, it's a privilege to be able to help people whenever they're in need. And, I feel very humbled by people's experience. The feedback that we get from clients is incredible. The things that they say that we have achieved for them, they've changed their lives, they've put their minds at rest. It really, it would bring tears to your eyes. Some of the things, we've dealt with very, very seriously hurt people, and we've dealt with people who aren't that seriously hurt but are still extremely stressed by the process. And if they don't have our protection, I mean, you're throwing them to the wolves. Absolutely. Because there's nothing there to stop that. And I think that there's people, it's like the dirty secret in the legal profession, personal injury work. It really is. It's been allowed to be, the butt of jokes and for too long, and you'll only know how much you need us when that awful thing happens to you or a family member. And if you allow, it's going to cost you £2 a year on your car insurance to take your rights away forever. You're really going to want to do that if you have a family member who is catastrophically injured and will never work again and will need 24-hour care. I mean, it just doesn't stack up. So I would really encourage people to do it. I have found it very difficult to do what I've done. Obviously I've got a full-time job, I've got 2 kids, I've now got a dog as well, I've lots of responsibilities, and I think that, but for me it is, I just couldn't step back and say, somebody put a quote up on LinkedIn the other day which I absolutely loved, which was Seamus Heaney quote, which says, there is no such thing as an innocent bystander. And I just think if you see something that's wrong, you've got to do something about it. And that is why I got into this. I believe in justice. I believe in the legal system. I think that, we do honourable work, and I'm proud to be a personal injury lawyer, and I really, really hope that everybody gets behind this consultation and starts bucking the trend.
Absolutely. Well, gosh, I mean, you're so passionate about it, but it is, as you said, where would you be? You'd be absolutely lost if you did encounter that situation. And I think it's great to have you on, Maurece, to really show us an insight into that industry, because we don't see it enough. We don't. And you're right, it's people, maybe this image behind the scenes, ambulance chasers, and it's really, really not. I mean, and you're working with a great team behind you as well.
Yeah, and incredible.
There's loads of information about the work that you do on your website as well, and we'll obviously share the link to that. But it's been absolutely fantastic to have you in our lovely wee studio here today to talk about all of those issues. I think everybody will find it very, very interesting, and listeners, it'll be great to have your feedback on this episode too. So thanks so much for coming in.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah and Jessica. You're so brilliant doing this. I have to say, they can tell you how nervous I was maybe another time, but you've made it very easy for me. I really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Not at all. Thanks so much. Chat to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so that was it for our episode there on a very interesting topic. And we have so many interesting guests coming up in this segment of Activist Lawyer. Next episode will include Megan Burns, who'll be talking about another issue that I have to admit I wasn't fully aware of, which is cryptocurrency. So it's great to have people on talking about issues that we're all still trying to get our heads around. So that will be one to watch for. So again, from Jessica and myself.
Yes, that was an excellent episode, Maurece. And anything that Maurece spoke about will be linked in the description, along with the forums and along with the JMK website if you do want more information.
That's fantastic. Thank you. That's everything from The Activist Lawyer today. Stay tuned. Follow us on social media to stay up to date. Thanks so much. Bye.
This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service for our team, using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.